Circus Club. My name is Mike Adams. I'm the executive chef here. And this is the 6th or 7th class that we've done for Cooking Essentials. It's the second part of our fish series, so this is all about fish part 2. And today we're really going to focus on salmon. And then at the end we have a surprise mystery fish that everybody voted on last week. Quick shout out to Dirk behind the camera, Robin behind the computer making us all look good. And we had one question last week about steaming fish and what is the best fish to steam. And here's really how I look at it. You can steam any fish you want as long as you're gentle with it. What steaming does is basically brings water up to about 212 degrees and that steam cooks the fish. Now a better approach, well, let me say this. I think most people steam fish for health reasons, predominantly. A better approach to that would be to poach fish. You're going to get the same effect. You're going to get more flavor in the fish. You can poach it in a bouillon, which doesn't have any fat in it, and just to be able to get that salt in there, and you're going to have more flavor, and it's just really just a better way to look at it. It's still the same, you know, low fat results. So today we're going to be talking about my favorite family of fish, and that's the salmon family. It's also referred to as the Salmonaceae if you go into the actual name of the breakdown family genus species. So the salmon family, or the Salmonaceae family, includes trout, it includes steelhead, it includes salmon, and it includes char. Maybe a couple others, but those are the prime ones. And I want to talk about those fish really quick, just so everybody has a good idea about them. So trout is a freshwater fish. It spends its entire life in fresh water, in rivers. It needs a high oxygen content, so those rivers are generally pretty aggressive. It doesn't spend a lot of time in still water. It lives off a diet of invertebrates, very low in fat. So trout is going to be very lean. Just because it really doesn't get any fat in its diet, and it's constantly working to get food. The way I would cook trout, like I would any thin fish, just in a pan, skin side down, just get nice color on the skin, and we'll go into that a little bit more. What is steelhead? Steelhead starts its life as a trout, and then some way it ends up in the ocean. And then, at the end of its life, when it's ready to spawn, or midlife, it actually swims back upstream to spawn in the river. So it's a freshwater fish that changes genetically slightly to become a saltwater fish, and then goes back to the freshwater to breed. Now, what does that mean? It means, so let me just preface this by saying, all steelhead is trout, but not all trout is steelhead. So steelhead, because it gets that ocean diet, it's going to have a slightly higher fat content, but because it's predisposed to live in freshwater, it's going to be kind of closer to the leaner side. It's a great fish. It's a great option. They're incredibly hard to catch, and it's just really beautiful, really aggressive fish. What is char? 200 years ago, a salmon swims upstream, and a boulder falls in the river, and it blocks that river, and that stream becomes a lake, and that salmon can't escape. Over time, that salmon is landlocked, and its generations are gonna shrink, and it's gonna become a char. So what it is, it's a landlocked salmon that can't make it back out to sea. So finally, the biggest and most popular member of the Salmonaceae family is salmon. Salmon start their life in a river, migrate down to the ocean, spend the majority of their lifetime in the ocean, where in the ocean they're eating a lot of crustaceans, they're eating a lot of tiny fish, they're eating a higher fat content diet, and what that means is you end up with a higher fat content fish. And you can actually see it when you look at salmon. You can see small striations of fat in between the layers of meat. After they spend time in the ocean and they're ready to spawn, they swim back upriver to the same spot every time the spot they were born, they lay their eggs and they die. That's the life cycle of a salmon. So why is this important? Really, so you know the fat content, so we can do a review of last week. I bring this up because when we're discussing poaching, salmon on its own, well, let's go back to salmon really quick actually. Let's talk about the salmon that we use at the club and why we use that. We predominantly use a sustainable salmon that's farmed off the coast of Chile called Circus 66. When fresh salmon or wild salmon is available, we will get that, but it's not available year-round, and as the years go by, because of overfishing, because of damming rivers, it's becoming less and less available. So we use a farm salmon. Now what's special about our farm salmon, and why do I use it? I like to use farm salmon because A, our oceans are overfished, the fish populations decline every year, and it really is projected that in 20 years there's going to be no bluefin tuna left on the market because it'll essentially be extinct with the few fish left in the ocean. The salmon that's raised by Circle 66 off the coast of Chile, it's 100 miles from Antarctica. It's some of the coldest waters in the world, which is great for salmon because really everything in the Salmonaceae family loves a water temp between 48 degrees and 56 degrees. That is its prime feeding time. Non-GMO, open waters. They're not just swimming in pools of man-made lakes. No hormones, no chemicals. So basically it's organically raised. And it's sustainable, which means we're not depleting the ocean's resources. So let's get into salmon. Okay, so let's do a review of last week. Last week we pan roasted some halibut. We poached some halibut. We looked at tuna and poaching tuna and grilling tuna. So this week we're going to focus on salmon, and I want to talk about poaching salmon. If I am poaching salmon, which has a high fat content, I'm going to primarily poach it in a bouillon because you don't need that added fat for flavor. If I am poaching steelhead or char, which has a lower fat content closer to that of a trout, then I will probably use an oil poach just to get some of that fat in there, some of that moisture, some of that flavor. If I'm poaching trout, I won't be poaching trout because it's too thin of a fish. I wouldn't even go there. So I want to talk about, we're going to talk about pan roasting first, then we're going to do a little grilling, and then we'll move on to our mystery fish that everybody voted on last week. So pan roasting, very important. We talked about it last week. Get your pan hot. You're going to add some oil to it. We're going to wait till it gets to the smoke point. And while we're waiting for that, we can talk about just roasting fish. A lot of people just like to roast fish because it's easy. It's a simple preparation. You use minimal amount of pans, minimal amount of time. All you're going to do is take your salmon, season it, and remember, season aggressively. Don't be shy, unless you have dietary restrictions, of course. Put a little bit of oil on it, extra virgin olive oil preferably. You're going to put it on a roasting rack. You're going to put that rack in the oven. I would say you really don't want to get any color in the oven because you're going to have a really high oven temp to do that. So maybe 350 degrees, and you want to pick it up to an internal temperature of around 125 to 135, really dependent on how you like your fish. 125 is going to be on the rare side, 135 is going to be on the medium to medium well, and you can even go above that. Now, our pan is getting hot. We're going to wait for that pan to smoke just slightly. Remember, always marinate your fish. Extra virgin olive oil, even though it's salmon, you can't have enough moisture in your fish. Waiting for the pan to warm. So, when you're roasting that fish, one thing you can do, you can put a little parsley on there, some ground fennel seed, ground coriander seed. You can brush it with lemon zest. You can brush it with garlic. You can do 1,000 things with that, and you can actually do a lot with pan roasting too. Now we're going to talk about the difference in a second between an oven-safe pan versus using a roasting rack. So we're getting our pan hot, and remember, you just want that oil to barely smoke. And once it does, we're going to place our fish in. And remember, one way to check your oil is to drag your fish across the pan. If the fish doesn't stick, the oil is ready. We're going to put our fish in there. We move it around to make sure it's not sticking to the pan. So, and remember, medium heat is your friend. We're going to turn that down. So, why am I doing this? We did this last week, right? You've all seen this. You don't need to see this again. A little bit different with salmon. Salmon has really high fat content, really high in omega-3s, and with that fat content, I actually want to get a little bit of crust on this fish because the fat is gonna change in flavor a little bit. Whereas halibut, we're just doing a quick sear on it. With salmon, we're gonna do a slightly further sear, and just kind of develop the crust. It's called the Maillard reaction. It's the caramelization of amino acids, and that's pretty much what's happening. So we're gonna show you. So last week, I'll take this out of the pan really quick. If that were halibut, we would have stopped there. This week, we're gonna keep going for another minute, another 2 minutes, just to develop a little bit more crust. And then, if you have a pan or an oven-safe pan, an all-clad, made-in, anything that's just pure metal that you're happy with, that you're comfortable putting in the oven, you can finish this entire fish in the pan. And that's what I recommend to do. That's the way we do it at the restaurant. If you don't, there's another great way. You got a nice crust on that fish. You're gonna flip it. And at this point, I would take this pan and I would put it in the oven and I would finish the fish in there. And I would pick it up 125 to 135 depending on your fish. Now, let's take a look at this really quick. Fish is starting to fracture out, like what we talked about last week. Salmon, because of all that fat's going to melt away, it's going to fracture more than other fish does while it's cooking. So if you don't have an oven-safe pan, take our salmon, put it on a roasting rack to get that convection going all the way around, and we're going to toss it in the oven. Temperature 300, 350. At this point, you can brush it with olive oil. You can parsley, fennel seed, however you want to flavor it, some lemon zest. We'll pop it in our oven. I'm going to give that about 8 minutes. Hey Siri, 8-minute timer. So while that's cooking, we're going to move on to grilling. I know Memorial Day weekend's coming up. You guys are going to be doing a lot of grilling. So we're actually, while we're cooking the salmon, we're going to do a quick grill primer about how to grill. What is the most important part of grilling? A clean grill and a hot grill.
A cold beer.
And a cold beer. Or 2, or 3, depending on who your in-laws are. So I've warmed up this grill, and we've cleaned it, we've scrubbed it. So grills are made out of cast iron predominantly, or stainless steel. Cast iron grills are far better. How do you know if your grill's hot enough? Well, there's an old adage that you should be able to take your hand, put it on top of your grill for 5 seconds, and that's hot enough. That's a really hot grill right now. I just burned all the hair on my arm. It happens. It's part of grilling. Take a towel. Put it in some oil. And rub it on the grill. And see what the oil does. Now, if you're uncomfortable getting that close to the fire, do it with a pair of tongs. You can grab that with a pair of tongs and just hold it. Wait a couple minutes and do it again. And see what your smoke does. Remember, in a pan, we wait for that oil to smoke. Same thing on the grill. If your oil is smoking, then your grill is hot enough. If it's smoking aggressively, it's a little too hot. So this is actually a little bit hotter than I like it. But that's fine. because if you're using wood at home, you can't really control it. I mean, that's just the way it works. When I grill at home, I grill on wood or mesquite just because you get more flavor than you do with gas. But gas is perfectly great. Set this aside. So, cuts in salmon. This is a block cut. This is a fillet cut. So why is that important? And really, it's all about the thickness of the fish. On the grill, super high heat. If I were to put that on the grill, by the time it finished, it would be super dark, super dry on the outside. With a fillet cut, it's going to cook a lot faster. So we're going to season it. And this is what a lot of people forget to do. Oil your protein. Beef, chicken, fish, whatever you're going to put on that grill, you need a little bit of oil on it. That's going to be your non-stick. And then, so we've seasoned that twice, and since it's cast iron, what we're essentially doing is we're seasoning the cast iron to make it more non-stick. I'm going to brush oil on it, or use my tongs right before, and then gently lay your fish down. You see how that fish is sizzling? The grill's a little hot. You don't really have a lot of control over that. Now, if you see it start to flare up, go under that and take it off the grill. Because what that flare up is, that is fat burning. And that's going to give you a little bit of soot. You can actually just wipe that off, but you really don't want that. And you see how fast that comes? So we're going to move that to another section of the grill. As the fish is cooking, you can watch it cook up to the fish. So we are about 1/8 of the way there. I'm going to take my fish, got a little bit of soot on there, and I'm going to give it a turn. So why do we do that? Honestly, it's just to make it look pretty. There's no lie about it. Turn our other fish, and I found more comfortable part of the grill. Now at this point at home, close the hood on your grill. If you have the hood on your grill, close the hood on your grill for a minute or 2 minutes. It's going to trap some of that flavor there. It's going to cook this side of the salmon a little bit more. If you're doing a thicker piece, move the fish to a colder part of the grill and close that hood and let it cook through. Now, just want to try something really quick. What happens when the grill is too cold? Already got enough oil on there. So if you look at our fish, it's cooking up the side, and really we're about 50% there. So we're gonna turn our fish. Turn our fish. Yeah, we got a little bit of soot on there. It happens. It's perfectly fine. It's not really going to change the flavor. So I put that on a cold part of the grill, and the reason I wanted to show you what happens. It may actually be too cold, but if you look, you can see the salmon's not really cooking, and if your grill isn't tempered, or if it isn't seasoned, then the salmon's just going to stick to it. You can see it's starting to stick right in here. We're just going to pick that up, move it over, we'll finish it up there. So the second side is probably going to take less time, and remember you need a rest time. So look at that striation on the meat. So this is rare to mid-rare, and how do I know? Because I can see it right inside. I'm going to take that off. What I'm going to do is I'm going to let that sit for a couple minutes before I serve it, and it's going to finish picking up. So we talked about striation last time. We talked about feel that fish. Feel it. You can see the striation on the meat breaking apart. You can feel where it's rare, where it's not so rare. And that'll tell you when it's done. It's hard to take the temp on these thinner fish.
Hi, kid.
So we've taken all our fish off the grill now. And let's take a look at it. So this one I took off a little bit early, and I want you to look. That's going to be more on the rare side. But if you let it sit for a couple minutes, it's going to come up to medium rare. It all depends on how you like your fish. Okay, these, we pulled them off mid-rare. You got a nice color in there. There's still lots of moisture in there. That's going to be a mid-rare to medium. The same here. I've also, during the break, pulled our fish out of the oven. Feel that fish. Feel what it does. You see the meat starting to flake. You can feel the flakiness of the meat, but on the inside, you can still feel a little bit of that bounce back that you get from raw fish. So we're going to open that up. Just let it set for a minute or two to let all the juices come in. If you get a little bit of this white coming out of your fish, that's fine. That's called albumin. And what it is, it's a protein. And at certain temps, it coagulates and it's extruded. The lower temp you cook the fish, the less albumin you're going to see. You can see with this, we cooked it around 300 degrees. Not as much albumin coming out of your fish. So let's open that up. Perfectly cooked, absolutely perfectly cooked. It's not too rare, but it's not too overcooked. So, is there anything else I missed, Dirk? Is that it?
Chef, why do you rest your meat?
So what happens is when you expose proteins or muscle groups to high heat, the muscles contract, the protein strands contract. And what you need to do is you need to let them, and when they contract, they squeeze moisture out. They squeeze moisture out of the cell walls. So you let them relax a little bit, and they're actually going to absorb some of that moisture back in. So if you've ever noticed, you take a steak off the grill, you put it on a plate for 3 minutes, and there's a lot of juice in the plate. That is those protein strands relaxing a little bit.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So that was all about salmon, the Salmonaceae family. If you have any questions, michela@menlocircusclub.com. And now we're going to move on. So I got a little surprise for everybody. We voted on a fish to cook, and got several responses. It wasn't as overwhelming as I thought it would be. The number of responses, hint, hint. And that reminds me, what do you want me to cook next week? Let me know. Shoot me an email. What do you want to learn? What do you want to know? So I'll be honest, I'm running out of ideas and I need some help here.
Barbecue season.
Barbecue season. We can do a whole thing on grilling and smoking. Sounds great. If you got any ideas, please shoot out. So our mystery fish this week. What is the #1 consumed fish when on the menu at the Menlo Circus Club? Dirk?
Halibut.
Nope.
Petrale.
Petrale sole. What is the #1 version of petrale sole that's consumed? Sole Meunière. So I thought, since it's so popular, I've never seen a place that ate so much petrale in my entire life. I'm going to be 100% honest with you. We put petrale on the menu, and we'll have 100 people come in, and 80 of them will order petrale. It's absolutely ridiculous. So we're going to cook a little sole really quick. It doesn't take very long. The nice thing about sole, it's a thin fish, and really this is the way you should prepare any thin fish if you want. There's no skin on petrale because really the skin on petrale isn't that edible. It's not that great. So what we're going to do, we're going to put a little protective layer on it, and the way we start, we're going to season our fish. And then we have a little flour dredge here. And that's already been seasoned a little bit. Salt, pepper if you like. Now as far as the flour goes, all-purpose flour works fine. You can use a gluten-free flour. You can use a ground breadcrumb. You can use semolina. You can use cornmeal. However you like to cook your fish, the technique is the same. Season the fish. We're going to give it a quick dredge in the flour. And what all this is going to do is give a nice little crust on the outside. That's all it's going to do. You can skip this step, and it's still going to, if you want something a little lower fat or gluten-free, it's still going to be great. So we've got a hot pan, and what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to add a couple drops of oil to that, and butter. So why add the oil? Well, butter has a very low smoke point, and I want to raise that smoke point to get some crispiness. So by adding oil, I'm raising the smoke point of the butter. So put our butter in there, let it melt. Put it back on the stove. I'm going to increase the heat. We're going to let that butter brown a little bit because it's Meunière. You should really use a burnt noisette, which is what this is. Let it brown. And just when it starts to brown, we're going to take our fish. Remember, always lay away from yourself. And we're going to cook that over medium heat so we get a little bit of color. Now, how do you know when it's done? Really, this is just more of a touch thing. You can take it farther than that if you like it a little more golden brown. I personally don't. We're going to let it finish in the pan. Feel it for that skin, feel for that fracture in the meat, the striation of the meat. And we're going to take it out when it's rare, because we're actually going to return it to the pan in the sauce. So we're going to remove that. You know, a little bit of color on there, not too much. It's really a matter of personal taste. We're going to take our pan, we're going to dump all that butter out. We're going to start fresh. Again, it's butter, no oil in this. And we want to brown that butter just a little bit. You see it just as it's starting to brown. We're going to add some shallots and some capers. Now, why do I add my capers now? Capers are usually, unless they're salt packed capers, they're usually stored in vinegar. And the high heat of this is going to cook some of that vinegar off, and it's going to give you a more pure nasturtium flavor. We can just saute that. And if you remember from episode 1 when we made a pan jus, we need to add a liquid to that. Really, you could add lemon juice to this, and that would be it. That is the traditional method, but I prefer more of an emulsified sauce. So I'm going to add a little bit of water. Turn my flame on high. Add my lemon juice. Add a little bit of salt. And I'm going to let that emulsify out just a little bit. Give it a taste. You should taste every ingredient. Lightly taste the shallots, you taste the lemon, you taste the brown butter. That means you're there. I'm going to stop right there. I'm actually going to, now let's look at this fish. Wow, feel it, it's perfectly cooked. It's still mid-rare in the middle. We're going to put that back in the sauce just for a minute. Add some parsley to that. I'm going to take it off the heat. I'm just going to baste it. And baste. And baste. Our sauce is emulsified. If it breaks, it's Meunière. It's perfectly fine. And that is it. It's that simple. 7 minutes. You can have a Charlie Sole Meunière at home.
Chef, what sides would you serve with that fish?
Oh, that's a hard one. In France, really, it just comes as a fish. You don't really eat any sides with this, but with a sauce like that, I like a really nice pomme puree of mashed potato. Very, very simple. I would stay away from roasted vegetables and roasted potatoes. I think they're a little too dry for a butter sauce. Rice would work really well. Vegetables with this, anything that pairs well with lemon and capers. So broccoli, anything in that brassica family, Brussels sprouts would be amazing with this if they were lightly caramelized in a pan.
And what kind of wine?
Oh, that's a hard one. I would say Char, honestly. I think it's got a little bit of oakiness to it. It's going to be on the drier side, and with that lemon and with that caper, it's just going to balance out really well. So that's it. That's all about fish. I'm Mike Adams, Menlo Circus Club, MICHELA at menlocircusclub.com. Thank you. We'll see you next week.